We come today to the final of three thoughts in this call of Jesus. We've already seen that the call says, "Come to me." Jesus is extending his arms in a very open way, in a very comforting way, and he is inviting all to come to him. There's not a person alive who does not need Jesus, and he knows that. And so he says, "Come to me." And all of us who are looking for that comforting and peaceful and joyous opportunity, he says, secondly, "Take my yoke." Sure, it is comforting and it is wonderful and it is exactly what we need as people whom he has made, but it also involves requirements. It is a yoke, it is a burden, but it is something that he carries and bears with us. And it is not like the burdens that we carry and bear on our own every day. So when he says to come to me, he says, "Take my yoke, but I'll be with you in the yoke." You will team up with me and we will work together and we will do it whatever needs to be done, because I will help you in that. And finally, he says, "Learn from me." Yep. For those of you that don't know, kids, that is a chalkboard. Now, there are a whole bunch of us that grew up with chalkboards. In fact, some people got to know chalkboards really well when you had to stay after school and write, "I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. I'm out of chalk. Here's some more. I will not talk in class." Others were given the responsibility to clean the chalkboard after class. I mean, we know what chalkboards are. How many students, I'd love to see a hand. How many of you, when you were young, were given the opportunity, we thought it was an opportunity, to take the erasers out and clean them? How many got to do that? Yeah, look at this. Yeah, look at this. And what did you do? Slap, 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 and it goes everywhere, and you're going, "This is so cool." You know what? Those of you in the technology age, little, you don't know what real living's all about. You just don't know. You just have no idea. You mean you got to play with the slap? Yeah, you did. It was fun. So see, you just have missed it. So I want to go back to the basics with this, right? And so I give you the chalkboard. It fits well what I think Jesus is saying in this part of the call. He says, "Learn from me." Let us consider that here for just a few minutes. Number one, learn. This is a word that means that you gather up all the facts while you are experiencing the situation. In fact, one of the root words to this word, the first part you will recognize, even though it will sound, and it is a Greek word, mathetes. That's the word in Scripture for a disciple. It's also called a learner. That's why the word math is a part of it. Jesus says, "Learn from me." Now notice what he's saying. Number one, he's saying, you do what I do. Then he's saying, and while you do what I do, you will understand who I am. He's not saying, learn the facts that are in the Bible. Well, that's a part of it, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, and here's a phrase, have you ever heard this phrase before? Can't you put two and two together? Here's what we're saying in a math way. It's saying, now look, Can't you see how this works? So how is 2 and 2 4? I don't understand that. Well, can't you put 2 and 2 together? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, now I see it. Someone the other day, I think I remember who it was. Well, I'm not going to embarrass the person, but it's a good thing, said to me, talking about the whole concept of when you're working on something, you just go ahead and do it, and eventually you'll get it. It's like saying, are you going to wait until you feel like it before you do something? Or are you just going to do it, and then you'll feel it? Well, that's the way to do. And the person described it this way, said, when you go to sleep, you fake it till you make it. Isn't that right? I had never thought about that before. What do? You lie down, you close your eyes, and you start breathing heavy. Some heavier than others. And eventually, you are asleep. Right? Now, let's say you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you go, out. That's called a disease. That is narcolepsy. You know, I sit down and I fall asleep. That kind of thing. Okay? Not talking about that. I'm talking about going to sleep. The process of going to sleep is I lay down like I intend to go to sleep. And I close my eyes because I want to go to sleep. And I begin to control my breathing because I am going to go to sleep. It is, I'm doing it until I'm there. That's what Jesus says. You learn from me. You do it until you're there. You know why? Because here's what he's saying. Just put 2 and 2 together. You want to learn to be this way? Start practicing it. Watch what I do and what I did. And just begin to put it into practice. And as you practice it, you will begin to understand, oh, I get it. Now I see it. Now I know. There's just a whole lot about Christianity that makes absolutely no earthly sense. Meaning, in the world, nobody understands it. You're what? You're doing what? Nobody gets it. But once you're doing it and you're a part of it, now you start to see it. Ah, I understand. So Jesus says, in his call to all of us, learn from me. Just start doing what I'm telling you. And eventually, it'll make a lot of sense. Number 2, why? For I am meek. I've talked about this many times, but I think it is a point that we really need to emphasize over and over again. You and I have seen pictures, artists' renderings of what they think it means for Jesus to be meek. And I'll tell you what they've drawn every time. They have drawn the figure of a man in desperate need of vitamin D from the sun, in desperate need of a little bit of time in a weight room because he has no muscles whatsoever. That's what they've drawn, and that's the picture of being meek. No, it's not. That's the picture of being weak. Jesus didn't say that. He said, I'm meek. That is strength under control. And that was Jesus. He has this strength that is incredible, but it was under control. I wonder what the greatest temptation of Jesus was. You ever thought about that? If he was tempted like we are, yet without sin, Hebrews chapter 4, what was his greatest temptation? You have one or two. Every one of us in this room has something that bothers us or that we are drawn to or that we are tempted by more than any other thing. Everybody has. What was Jesus's? I don't know. But let me give you a possibility. You remember in the garden when he was being arrested, Peter pulled out his sword and cut off the high priest Malchus's ear. I'm ready to fight, Lord. You remember what Jesus did, right? He picked up the ear, put it back on, and here's what he said. Put away your sword. Don't you know that right now I could call down 12 legions of angels? Do you think his greatest temptation was his limitless power that he could not use? Remember one time the disciples asked him, why don't you just call down fire on them? I mean, come on. No. How many of us would do well with limitless power? In the movie industry, we're in the phase now of superheroes, right? All these movies are coming out about these superheroes, which, by the way, were invented back in the chalkboard era, right? So it's these chalkboard era heroes that are being presented to us in our high-tech society. It's okay, because they're a lot more enjoyable that way, I can promise you. But they have limitless power in some area. Think about Jesus. Limitless power. He could call at any moment, and he did not. His greatest temptation may very well have been to say, I am not going to take advantage of the power that I naturally have. How do we see his power under control? Number one, he was passionate. He was passionate. When he walked into that temple, and he kicked those sellers out who were desecrating its premises, he was passionate about the house of his God. He was passionate. But he was also compassionate. When he stood before the tomb of Lazarus, and he said those words that have been the source of every single person's memory verse at some time in life when they were required to do so. Jesus wept. He was compassionate. And when he came into the city of Jerusalem and he looked over the city, and he said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often would I have gathered you to me like a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. You think he felt something for those people that he had created who had decided to dismiss him? The meekness of Jesus is that this man with limitless power had it under control. And that's what he's telling you and me. Learn from me. Keep your power under control. Boy, don't people in authority today need to learn that lesson? Do you think we would have better societies if people in power would keep it under control the way Jesus says to do, instead of letting it go to their heads? I am meek. Number 3, I am lowly. This word is the word for humble. Like James chapter 4, verse 10, humble yourselves. Humble, be humble. I like this concept. This word is used to translate, the Greeks used it to translate a word in the Old Testament which was written in Hebrew. In Ezekiel 17 in verse 24, when he's talking about how I'm going to restore Israel to its place. They were in captivity and I'm going to bring you back. And he said this, then they will know, all nations will know, that I have brought down the high tree. That's this word. Here's what it literally means. Not far from the ground. Jesus is lowly. He's not far from the ground. Right? How about when he got on the ground to wash the disciples' feet? He was not far from the ground. How about when they brought to him the woman taken in adultery? And his words were, let those among you without sin cast the first stone. And then the text says, he knelt down and wrote in the ground, and he was not far from the ground. But how about this? Philippians chapter 2, verse 7. He emptied himself. Jesus emptied himself to come here, to come to the ground. What did he do? He emptied himself of his position. He was up there, and he came to the ground. He emptied himself of his person. He was a spiritual being, and he took on a body made from the ground. Jesus is lowly. And in his form, he became a bondservant. In Philippians 2 and 7, the word form means a copy that appears on the outside but reflects what is the essence of the person, so that they are one. He looked like a servant. In fact, in that text of John 13, when he washed the disciples' feet, the text says he girded himself with a towel. Because of their long and flowing robes, when they would do that kind of work, they would pull up the robe, tuck it in the belt, and have a towel hanging there to do the work. At that moment, he looked like a servant. But guess what? It wasn't just a show. It wasn't like a costume. It perfectly represented his essence, the form of a bondservant. And he came in the likeness of man. The likeness of man means to have a picture so that you can learn from it. Likeness. Whenever they're looking for a suspect in a crime, and somebody sits down who was an eyewitness, and the person over there draws the likeness of who it was, is that the person that did it? No. But it's a likeness so that you can learn from it. And from that likeness, we can get to the point of saying, there's the person who did it. He came in the likeness of man. Jesus was a representation so that we could learn from him. Finally, fourth in this call, you will find rest for your souls. You're looking for rest? Most of us are. I talked to Kevin this morning about his recent vacation, and he described lying on the beach 4 hours a day and sleeping. And I said, well, if you're not rested now, you don't have a chance to be. That's exactly right. You looking for rest? Most of us are looking for rest and recreation. We're looking to debrief from the work day and the loads of life. We're looking for it. But it's not working. Most of the time, it's not working really well. But notice what Jesus said. You can find rest. You know what that word find is? You'll know the word. Eureka! It is said that Thomas Edison found 100 things that would not work to make a light bulb. Did he fail? Mm-mm. How did he find the light bulb? Because he was looking for it. He was searching for it. He was working toward it. That's what this word means. Jesus said, and put it all together, if you will learn from me, if you will just do what I'm telling you, as you practice it, you'll get it. You'll understand it. It'll make sense. When you keep your power under control and you get close to the ground and become that humble servant, you'll find rest. Because you're searching for it. You're searching for it. Oftentimes, when Ezra gets ready to leave my house, well, no, not oftentimes, every time, we can't find his shoes. Never can. And we say, go get your shoes. 30 seconds later, can't find them. You know why? He wasn't looking, right? You know that, right? You know why he wasn't looking? Because I'm going to go get them. He knows that. What I now do is say, I know where they are. You go get them. And when you tell him where they are, now he gets them. That's what Jesus is saying. You will find rest. Eureka! You will discover it. But you'll only find it when you search for it. But if you search for it over there, and it's over here, you think you'll find it? Not going to happen. Therefore, Jesus said, you looking for rest? Here it is. You want to find it? Here it is. Lord, where is it? It's right here. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. You'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. The call of Jesus. It fits every single person, in every single time, in every part of life. The only question left, have you heeded the call? Have you accepted the invitation? Or are you still searching in the wrong place to find what He says He will give? If you are yet outside of Jesus, if you've never been immersed into the cleansing blood of His Son in baptism, you are searching in the wrong place to find what He wants to give. But if you want to begin that journey there, then you can start from that point in the right place, finding what you're really looking for. Maybe over time, having been in the right place, you've been searching now in the wrong place. Time to come back and come right here where you can find what you're looking for. This is the Lord's invitation. And we're here for you if you need us while we stand and sing.